Hey, everybody, welcome to this episode of Think Business. Looking forward to having Dr. Lisa Cooney back. It's great to see you, Lisa. I'm looking forward to talking with you about your new book, The Body of Change, Unlock Your Potential with Dr. Lisa Cooney, Cooney's Transformative Insights. The book, you just emailed me, so I haven't read it. I've perused it a little bit, but I did.
It's okay.
And we put this on the books right away, and you were gracious enough. I said, "Oh, I'd love to have you back on the show," and you did. And so I love this topic, and I'm excited to talk about it. So let's dive in. drlisacooney.com, by the way. So The Body of Change. I love the name, and I wanna just rewind a little bit before we get into the book.
Sure.
You know, I'm 52, and you know, I think there's, you know, the statement when you run into someone and they say, "Oh, you haven't changed," I think is insulting, right? You know, I hope I've changed and evolved and grown and this and the other. But rewind with me when you know, to the earliest age you can remember, where like you remember like, oh, I grew, I changed, and that felt great.
The earliest time. Wow. That's a really great question. I have a pretty big answer to that. And it's not a fun story, but it's a great story in the way that it ended, leading me to today. Yeah. And so actually I was 20 something living in San Francisco, and I had really been, it was just when I started my personal work, or when I really started my personal work, but I was down in the bottom and I was just ready to chuck it in, my body, everything. And at the time I was heavily influenced by substances and alcohol, and masking the pain of what was really going on inside my body. And I literally decided to end my life at that time. And I was walking around the streets of San Francisco at night. I stepped in front of a bus.
Oh my God.
To end it. Yeah. Just to end my life. Saw the lights, everything. And then all of a sudden, I felt a pull on my shoulder, my right shoulder. And I feel it every time I talk about this. And it pulled me back to the sidewalk. And I looked around and nobody was there. And it was that moment that changed my life.
Wow.
Suicide is very serious. So I'm going to make a little bit of a joke, but I'm putting the caveat that does not mean suicide is a joke. I've had a lot of clients and my own personal work with this. So it's not a joke. It's a real serious mental health issue. But at that moment, I said what I called God or whatever. I just called it out. There must be something else for me, because I can't even kill myself right. And that is when my entire world changed. And I dedicated my life to finding out and resolving what would get me or any person to the point of doing that to themselves, and feeling like they had no other choice, even though that was a choice.
Yeah. Wow. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go.
I was going to say, I appreciate you sharing that story, and thanks for your vulnerability. I have a question on it. I just want to throw out that if anybody who is listening to this or knows people, and anyone is thinking about suicide, 988 is the suicide and crisis lifeline. So I just want to kind of throw that out. So what was that pull? What was that? How do you, I know you defined it as, was it God? Was it this? You know, what was that? Was it your guides? Was it your spirit guides? What was that, do you think?
Well, that's still, to this day, the short answer is all of that, John, honestly. Wow. But it wasn't the first time that I felt like a different energy, of more like the mystical, the spiritual, the occult, not cult, but OCCULT in my life. Because I grew up in a very, religious oriented, but spiritually oriented family. We used to go to prayer meetings. We used to do hand-on healing. I mean, we used to. Well, my mom took me. That's what I mean by we used to. And so I was familiar with that, but I had never actually experienced it myself until that moment. So then I just became a voracious reader of everything possible about the mystical, the spiritual. I did go to therapy. and regular therapy twice a week. I did get on medication. I did get sober. And I went to, school, and I got my master's degree and my doctorate, which also required a certain level of training and supervision and therapeutic involvement as well. And I just made this my mission, is to figure all of that out. And I also got an extra master's degree, which I didn't need, so I make a joke now, extra master's degree actually in an energetic spiritual healing technique called theta healing, with the theta brainwave and the gamma brainwave, because it was very successful for me. Fast forward like 10 years later, I worked to heal myself psychologically, with all the things I mentioned, and my body was still ill. And then I got diagnosed very young with an endocrine system disorder. And the only choices that were given me were to kill the organ in my body and keep it there, stay on medication for the rest of my life and keep the dead organ in my body, or remove it. And I was only 30 at this time. And I said, nope, nope, nope. I'll never forget, there was a 6'4" Asian gentleman who was just doing what, doctors do when they just focus on the endocrine system. He was doing his job. Just said, there has to be another way. And he said, there wasn't. I said, I will find it. And I never saw him again. And then I went to the Theta Healing Institute, again, kind of like the arm coming out or something pulling me back with the bus. I just found it on my computer one day, and I heard inside my guides, whatever, my intuition say, you're going to heal. I went to the founder. The founder took my hand after a class, and I said, I've been diagnosed with this disorder. I know it's possible to heal. She did what she did in that particular modality, theta healing. I went back to the doctor. There was no disease. I went back to the institute and stayed there for 3 months, lived there essentially, and got my master's in energy healing to figure out what the heck was going on. I'd already had my master's. I was just about finished with my doctorate. But the spiritual and this occult, mystical energy that a lot of Latin American cultures, use every day in their life, really fascinated me. And I had such a thirst to quench with it. And then my whole practice, life, and everything changed. And I still have those particular organs. My endocrine system's working good at 54.
What a story. I was introduced to the energy world when I met my wife in my mid-20s. She was living in Chicago, and she was going to a holistic healer. And she said, I want you to come. My wife's a nurse by trade. And so, long story short, he started healing a lot of things.
Yes.
And it was incredible. And so I go to a Buddhist monk in Ann Arbor, Michigan, who was raised in a monastery, and some holistic doctors. I still have my Western doctor, but I rely a lot on my.
As do I.
Yeah, my holistic. My wife, as I said, is a nurse by trade, but she is an energy healer. She practices, I would call it more a higher extended version of Reiki, but she now only does that for people who are in hospice and about to pass. So the energy world is a fun world, and the theta. I used to do a lot of theta meditation, and
so
those are pretty. It's a great space. You said earlier, you dove into reading. I remember 31 years ago, my aunt, who was like a second mother to me, passed away, and it was a very devastating time. And but two books really kind of helped me with it. One was Many Lives, Many Masters.
I love that book.
And then Talking to Heaven by James Van Praagh. Those two books started opening up my eyes a little bit more about kind of just different worlds. What books did you start to read that kind of began, to open up your lens of life?
Well, first of all, Pema Chodron's Start Where You Are was huge. This was back in the day. Some people listening to this now might not remember Pema Chodron, but
I know her. She's great. Yeah.
Start Where You Are was a big realization for me, which it took the pressure off of getting somewhere and just, okay, here I am. This is my discomfort. And it actually helped me model the technique that I trademark and use in my work called the ROAR technique. Well, it's actually called the ROAR method, but it's a technique. And it really helped me embrace what was and really start to examine it, what was going on in the moment, so that I could embody a different reality and expand into what I call what our true soul print is here on this planet. And so that was one big book that I can do. Also, I did a lot of reading of the codependent, Queen, Melanie Beattie, and all those sorts of things, learning how to leave, learning how to let go, detachment. But I can't think of the names of the books right now, other than what struck out was Pema Chodron, Start Where You're At, Start Where You Are.
That's great. Have you ever read the book? I've been trying to get through it for a while. My therapist recommended it to me a long time ago. The Body Keeps the Score.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
It's a great book.
Yeah, I know. I listen to it like a little piece at a time, a little bit at a time.
It's informed my work. So thank you for bringing that up, The Body of Change, because when I first saw that book, writing a book about the body and changing the body, and listening to what it's saying to you was something I was doing in my life and with my clients, but it wasn't any kind of formed thing that I could put together.
Yeah.
I saw that something happened in my body, and I was just like, I need to see what they're talking about, because I know this and I know something about this, and I wanted to contribute to that, let's say, school of thought about our bodies, because so many people and young people that I've worked with, and I'm sure your wife and you've also had, people that we're getting sicker and sicker and sicker.
Yeah.
Sicker and sicker and sicker. And it's like all of a sudden everybody's so sick. And why?
Yeah.
From, women that are running Citibank and managers to, stay-at-home moms to lawyers and judges and all these sorts of things. And I'm like, what is going on in our world? Is it the food?
Yeah.
Is it our thoughts? Is it the water? We're just bad luck. What's going on? And so I really wanted to get to a little bit more information about what the body, listening to our bodies, could do, because it does remember everything and keep the score.
Yeah, I love it.
And when I worked when I had my clinic in San Francisco, and I worked specifically with trauma and addictions also there, and sicknesses, like diseases.
Yeah.
And they kept coming in and saying, I don't remember, but I have a sense that this really shaped, who I am today and how my body functions. And I would say to them, just for today, just for this session, would you be willing just to allow your body to be right? Believe everything it says, and let's just see where it goes without having to take it out of the room, confronting somebody, or, putting yourself in a position that you're not ready for. Let's just let your body talk. And that was one of the most successful, conversations I've had with tons of people since then.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
For today, what would your body say about that? In fact, before this podcast, I did a session with a woman, and she had all this anxiety and franticness in her chest, and it was related to her son, and she had never put it all together, what it was connected to.
Yeah.
It just takes time to make space for yourself.
Right.
Listen in. And that in this fast iPhone 15, 16, 17, 18, 27, happening within every 3 months, we can't even catch up to ourselves sometimes, let alone sit and feel into our body.
I tell people when they call me, I'm a business coach, and I work with solopreneurs to Fortune companies, everything in between. And they will ask me, like, what exactly is business coaching? And the way, after I talk to them about, ask them a lot of questions or this and the other, what I share with them is very similar to what you just said, is I create a space for my clients to get to a place they can't get to on their own.
Yeah.
And the questions that I ask them get you deeper into that space, because then you can really do your work. And then we give you an action. And then we work on an action plan. So when you come out of that space, you actually can bring that space with you in your day to day a little bit more with some clarity. But to your point, most people, and especially I think I see this a lot, Lisa, much more after COVID, they can't catch up to themselves. They can't catch up to themselves, and they feel more disconnected. And I see companies, like when I'm doing keynotes, where they want to have part of their keynote where people just reconnecting their people is a big piece of it.
I think that's beautiful. And I'm so grateful that you're doing that, because I see that every day as well. Even when I'm working individually with my clients, and getting to do it in a group setting like that is just amazing.
Yeah.
Because we really are moving with our heads and our bodies are back here, but there is no connection.
Yeah.
Whether you're 22 or 62, like I see it all over the place, and it has exacerbated since COVID. So I wholeheartedly agree with that. And I'm so glad to know that that's going on.
Yeah.
It's like a daily practice. I had to create a daily practice for myself that I call my creation station, where I just spend, it started out as like a half hour. Now it's more like, 10 to 15 minutes. And on those good days that I actually create the space for a half hour again, I'll stay longer, but I still do it now, 5 years later. Actually 6 and a half years later, where I just spend 15 minutes focusing on me, my body, my business, my life, my family, and how I would like to rule my day.
Yeah.
Best of my ability today. And it takes getting your mind quiet to receive that information and connect with your body. But I had to work on that, because I wasn't taught that. I had to teach myself that.
Yeah. But to your point, when you say you have to work on it, one of the things I see is that, people think work is like just work, like what you do that you quote unquote define as work. But part of work is what you just suggested, right? As the older I get, the more I realize it's all the work. It's a wheel, and if everything isn't balanced, you got to work on every piece of it. Otherwise, right. And sometimes you got to do a little less of this and do a little bit more of this. And then, and that's how you start, I think, to catch up.
Some people are really, I think I love that, John. Some people are really good at doing and getting stuff done and crossing it off their list. And it's amazing. And some people are really terrible at being, and they can't do anything, just being and sitting and creating and manifesting or actualizing what they want. Some people are really good socially and are horrible, like executive function wise, about following a structure and things like that. So it's like, remember that game Trivial Pursuit, where you put the little pie piece? It's like, I say, like, that's the wheel of our life, and it's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, financial, all of that. And when one area is flat, your tire ain't going to roll.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's what I'm speaking to. And I find my body and my mind, soul and spirit, when we're in harmony, and it might be different for each person what that means, but I can feel it when I'm in harmony.
Yeah.
It's like my head's not foggy. My body feels light.
Yeah.
Like I'm excited about everything or whatever. No, everything that might look like a problem is to me just seen as a possibility. And then a week later, everything could be the opposite for some reason. I don't know what happened, but I have to reground, recenter, refocus me, because I lost that connection.
Yeah. Getting back to center. It's so important.
Mm-hmm.
One more question, and then I want to dive into your book.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big believer that we teach our pain, right? And your story, as you're talking about it, you've taken your pain and you're now teaching it, and you are, intimately familiar with it because it was your pain. You had to come out of it.
Correct.
You then can, monetize and scale it, not. And so can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think a lot of the stuff you're talking about, there's a there's a level of consciousness, I think, that people have when they go through any, I know I've gone through this too, any spiritual awakening. I had cancer when I was 30. And then at my 40-year-old checkup, they told me I was dying, but they messed up my blood and I was fine. So for a day, so it's like, but anytime you kind of,
what
yeah,
a scare.
yeah, anytime you go through stuff like that, you kind of, you come out, I think, stronger.
Sure.
But I think sometimes, and I talk to people a lot about, sometimes people get stuck in the conscious and forget about the capitalist side. And so when you grow, when you teach your pain and you grow from your pain, I think it's okay to be a conscious capitalist, because it's okay to make money. And the more money you make, the more people you can help. And so can you just kind of talk about the evolution of kind of, how to take what spiritually, God or angels or your spirit guides, got you away from that bus, but now through the evolution of your growth, now you can help a lot of people, but it's okay to make a lot of money too. So just kind of, can you blend that?
I'll do my best, but I love what you said, conscious capitalist. And when you said that, it spoke to my soul, because I consider what I'm doing is soul work.
Yeah.
And I feel I have a personal belief that we all come in here with some contracts that, whether you remember it or not, you came here to undo and hopefully leave done, and not like at the end of your life, like in a work in process. So you get happier, freer, more joyous, and more fulfilled in all areas. I don't think we're here to suffer.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, I'll be 55 in November. So I would basically say that, my life got a lot easier after 40. But those first 40 years, they were pretty tumultuous.
Yeah.
And I really always thought, when I was speaking that, or working outside professionally, that if there has to be at least a handful of people that have gone through similar pain that I have, that may not have had access to hearing a story like mine, which is a story like yours or whomever. I'm not making it just mine. But like that would also open a door for them to reconnect to what they're actually intrinsically doing here. Right.
Yeah.
And so it was always from the soul that I did everything, whether I was in Turkey, Istanbul, or Germany, or Brazil, or Mexico, or America. My soul was like, you don't need to live like that, because I used to live like that. And somehow I knew that something was different, but I had to lean in and do all this discomfort and uncomfortable work and pain to undo it,
Yeah.
to find a way out of it. And then I created the techniques and the books and, videos, podcasts like this, to just speak it so people can hear it. My books now are in 11 different languages, all of them, including this one. And it's so people in other countries, not just English speaking countries, can receive this information, because it's larger than a country. It's the body, and everybody has a body.
Yeah.
And I grew up with a lot of hatred on my body, but it wasn't necessarily mine. I was hit a lot. I was spoken to horribly. I was sexually assaulted a number of times. I put drugs and alcohol in my body and blacked out in my 20s too many times to even remember.
Yeah.
But also did the work to heal those blackouts, right? Not just through the recovery world, but more of the occult spiritual techniques that we're seeing come out now. And I was just like, no matter what, I'm leaving this life with a better relationship with my body, where I can actually say we're friends.
Yeah.
And I think that the greatest disease on this planet is the fight and war within ourselves, psychically, psychologically, and that the body keeps the score.
Yeah. Yeah. It reminds me of something, Sacred Contracts, Carolyn Mice.
Good one. Great one.
yeah, she talks about the biggest betrayal is the betrayal of yourself.
Oh
To
yeah.
to your point, yeah.
Every single person I work with, besides when they're done and we get through the other that they're mad about, the situation, the presenting problem, the presenting person, the presenting issue, it always ends up with ourselves.
Yeah,
And I miss that.
yeah,
I said yes when I meant no. I said no when I meant yes. I let them treat me like that. I created a pattern like that. My marriage, I never said this, like everywhere.
yeah,
And then once we get past that and they release that obligation to, let's say, abuse yourself and not have your own back, then everything's cool in
yeah,
my life and everything's better.
yeah.
And life is easier, less problems, more joy.
Yeah, you just got to look in the mirror and stop pointing fingers. Yeah. All right, let's talk about your book. So let me just say this as I kind of talk about your book a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, your healing work that you do is great. I did a session with you. It's been a little bit. My wife has done a session with you. We both individually, we did individual sessions. We loved it. Um, Zach Brown, founder and CEO of the Zach Brown Bank, Gwyneth Paltrow, founder and CEO of Goop, and the actress. Also, our clients of yours, they are Gwyneth is the forward of your book, testimonials from both. Your book, I just want to kind of read a little bit about you that's kind of summarizes a lot of the stuff that you have shared. You're a leading expert in personal transformation and trauma recovery, focusing on soul therapy, life coaching, and spiritual transformation. Creator, as you've shared about the groundbreaking Roar. You've transformed lives of thousands, helping people overcome childhood abuse and achieve a radically, orgasmically alive reality, which is Roar. And now you have your new book, The Body of Change, Using Your Body to Heal, Love, and Empower Yourself, by Dr. Lisa Cooney. I can't wait to dive into it and really read it. So a couple things, when it comes to, using your body to heal, and you've talked a little bit about this in love and empowering yourself, I want to kind of work backwards. And so, and you can bring out any elements of the book to define this, obviously, but, I think people, to inspire someone and to empower yourself are two different things.
Mm-hmm.
And so your tagline is using your body to heal, love, and empower yourself. Let's start with empowering yourself. How does the book, feel like the book is an extension of you. So how do the two of you, guide people to empower themselves?
First and foremost, and I always say this, it's like learn your yes when you mean yes and your no when you mean no, and learn to stick to it no matter what. I'll never forget when I first got myself sober, and my cousin, who's, you got to imagine this with a Tony Soprano, New Jersey accent. He's like, Lee, you just got to be the best effing friend to yourself ever, no matter what.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with your body. And I just literally wrote this book it was years and years and years ago when the first chapter was written now, probably about 8 years ago. And I sat at the computer and I closed my eyes and I said, I got to get deeper, because I didn't know what was going on. And I was getting really out of control. And you just know when you're not right? You just knew it. And I closed my eyes, I put my hands on the keyboard, and the next thing I know, I was just typing. I don't even know what I was typing. And then I felt tears running down my cheeks.
Yeah.
And I opened my eyes, and right on the page, you're killing me. And I started with, like, what would my body say to me? You're killing me. When I saw that, I was like, the Home Alone kid.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, that is the most horrible, not the most horrible, but in that moment, it was the most horrible thing to realize that I was killing my body, and my body was telling me this. It's kind of like taking your money to couples therapy. What would your money say?
Yeah.
Right? We're actually going to couples therapy, and you have a persona, but how are you really? You have a persona you put to the world, but how are you really at home? Same thing. And so that was like a come to Jesus moment for me. I was like, I got to do something different. So that's when you get those moments and you know you're not right, and you journal or go to therapy, or a friend tells you something that just says, oh yeah, I got to do something. You have to, in my opinion,
Yeah.
lean in and take action.
Yeah.
And if you don't, it's going to come back, and
Yeah.
it's going to come back harder and worse, probably like a 2x4 or a 10x4 or a Mack truck. So at that point, I felt like I was at the Mack truck. So I had to empower myself by taking the risk to hear what I didn't want to hear, which was, you're killing me. And I knew how I was killing myself. I was sick. There was too much other issues that I was numbing with other excuses. And I also wanted to be out in the world where I felt good about my body and my being and my light inside as well as outside. Not because of body positivity or body shame or anything like that. It was more like, I need to be in my integrity if I'm going to do this work. And that's what my integrity meant for me.
Yeah.
I knew, because we did these posts, John, with like before and after pictures, right? Of when I started writing the book, which was years and years and years ago, and when I finished it, which was last year. And then all it takes to get it published and all of that.
Yeah.
And it's two different people. I look like two really different people. I mean, maybe you can see the smile might be the same, but there's a smile hiding a lot of things in the old picture, and there's an energetic alignment in the new picture.
Yeah.
And that's what I was looking for. I didn't know that so many years ago, but I can see it now. And that's when I knew it was time to empower myself by getting that book out of there, where I could really do some different teaching with people, bodies. And especially after COVID, I was like, all our bodies got so taxed with so many different things, whether you took the jab or not, just in what happened in the world. Even my own son, he had to, for school purposes. And long story, I don't want to get into opinions and all those sorts of things, but he was an adult, he chose it, and he almost died. He literally had, water, blood washing into his heart. They put him into surgery. We had to get there within hours because they said he's going to die.
Oh my God.
He was only, 21 at the time. And no, 20, sorry. And it's 2 years ago now, and it was the worst day of our lives. And his life has just gotten back on track today. But I've done a lot of work with him and his body at 22, and other healers that I've employed to help him continuously for these last 2 years, because his mind got so messed up.
I am sorry.
Like, we're losing him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, we're going to love, heal, and empower you. And I don't care what it takes.
Yeah.
And I'll do whatever. I'll take you wherever we need to go, and I'll introduce you to wherever. And then we found the gym for him, and he's building muscle now and getting his body back, and the scars are all hiding, and he started they're going away, and he's starting to date again. He's back in college doing his life, so everything's great.
Great.
Man, it was really scary.
I'm sorry, Lisa. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
And then my family, and what I see with clients, and our bodies are just taking such hits. So I detracted a little bit, but empowering yourself is, even with other family members, if there's a problem, lean in and say something about it. This is like the airport theme now, right? If you see something, say something.
Yeah. That's
what I feel like the best thing of COVID happened is, like, if you see something, everybody's saying something. Yeah. And I think that is great.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm glad your son is better.
Thank you.
To hear that. But yeah, you bring up a really good point. I mean, and leaning in, and I think leaning into that type of conversation you're talking about, but also being, leaning in, but being open to a conversation. It's not just, lean in, dump, and then walk away. Lean into the full conversation. It's interesting. You talk about saying yes and no. And I think I'm 52. I turned 52 this year. And I think saying no to things is, it's been a big change for me this year. You
Yeah.
know, boards that I sat on, that some nonprofits that I just didn't want to do anymore, or places that I, belong to that I didn't want to be part of anymore. It's just like, and just kind of saying, and it's one thing to think no, or I hate going to this, or I'm not enjoying this, but then to really like make the move and to say no, it's great. It frees up a lot of energy and a lot of space. So
I have so much to say about that, but first and foremost, congratulations. That's awesome.
yeah, yeah, it was great. I mean, I've been sitting on committees since I was like nonprofits for like since I was 23.
Yeah.
I just am done. I don't think I'll sit on boards of like companies, but I'm not going to sit on nonprofits anymore, because it just, for me, I can never use my real voice. And when I do, people like, it's like, I think I'm bringing out something obvious that everyone should be talking about, but nobody wants to talk about. It's my perception, by the way. It feels like, so,
a lot of parts of the world like that, not just.
yeah, you become the outspoken, and then, and when you don't speak, I don't feel true to myself. So it's
I know.
Yeah, so
it's interesting because this theme has come up a lot. I literally just saw a post 3 or 4 days ago from Gwyneth Paltrow on her social media that said she was dancing out in the rain in the Hamptons because she's doing some work out there apparently, and she was saying, what a great way, because it's raining, to dance away some of the situations, people, places, events that no longer fit for me, and I'm saying no to. And I was like, this is exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
And there is such a freedom in that, but that's the embracing. You can't make that move if you don't embrace the fact that there's something uncomfortable for you, or that doesn't work for you in those environments anymore. It may be about the environment. It may be about people in the environment, but it may just be like your soul, your contract for that particular position is done for now. And that door has to be closed so that you can open the door, so the universe can open the door and you can walk through it.
Yeah.
That's more in alignment with where you are now.
Correct.
So that's also that's a way to empower yourself, is to, I know for me, it was like when doors closed before I was ready for them, I'd be like trying to pry it open with a crowbar and keep it. And that never worked either. Yeah. So I've learned to like pause, postpone action until serenity exists, let the door close. And then if it's, not my will, so to speak, let the door close, and then be like, how appropriate is that? Is this a possibility or is this a problem? And it's usually a possibility, not a problem.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's the empowerment.
Yeah.
But you have to listen in. You
got to listen in. Yeah. You got to listen in, and then not feel guilty for, saying no.
Guilt is not appropriate when you ask and act on your behalf. But in this reality, it's more the norm.
Yeah.
Because you're usually feeling guilty for the obligation or the perception outside of yourself versus your own action. And that's the rub there. When you find who your guilt is really related to, it's usually your mother or your father or child, an old boss or situation, but it's not you. And most people miss that. And that's the crux of creating ourselves in situations that are conflicts.
Yeah.
And then putting stress on our nervous system, putting, brain fog in our brain because we don't want to be there, or that resentment, like, oh God, I'm driving to this thing, I don't want to go. Or now it's more like I'm on Zoom with this thing, so I'm driving to my office in my house across from my bedroom, that kind of thing. But you get it.
I get it. So let's talk about some of the elements of your book, right? We're not going to get into all of it, and I want people to go buy the book. But on this topic, chapter 2, what's holding you back? And you talked a little bit about, how to empower yourself and to say yes or no. But how do people step into their voice? How do people step into their, kind of uniqueness? And how do people kind of, step into themselves to get to their next level / on the path of their potential?
Great question. And there's a lot there. So one, to step into your voice, you really have to spend some quiet time figuring out where you're saying what's really true for you and where you're not.
Yeah.
And sometimes it starts at home or with yourself, right?
Yeah.
And certainly we're all going to have, if we have bosses at work, there's certain ways you got to be, and diplomacy is very important, but you got to find out what is your voice. Where would you like to have your voice? Where are you good at with your voice? And where have the conflicts been that people haven't received your voice in the way that you would like to be received? And are there any issues in your family system? Yes, your family system that you grew up with that makes you hinder somehow. You're still believing that it makes you hinder your full voice. So that's the first thing. Again, I do everything about getting quiet, checking with myself. And I know that even as working with clients, I know they're going to get on. I ask them, so how can I contribute to you today? What's the presenting problem, let's say, in your world? And they'll tell me and talk all about whatever the problem is and the person and the situation and who did what and what did who and all that. And then I'll be like, okay, so where does that hit you in your body and what does that bring up for you?
Yeah.
Because I don't really want to hear, I will hear them, first of all, because they have to get it out. But I know the answer to moving this person forward isn't about their voice saying something about other people. It's just the first step. It's like, what does it bring up for you, about you? And so I help people find that. That's like the soul work of it. Then when we do that continuously over and over and over again, something starts to wake up, what I've seen in the body. And a rabbi that coined this term, soul printing, when I was writing my soul print, when I was writing my dissertation years ago, and it's based in the Jewish spirituality, and it says, your soul print is likened to that of your fingerprint. It's unique to you, but it's more unique than anything, just for you. But unleashing your soul print on the lips of this reality is the quote unquote goal of spiritual living. That's according to this rabbi, right? And when I first read that and used that in my dissertation, something again resonated in my body. Notice how I'm very kinesthetic. I feel things very, very strongly in my body, and I pay attention to those messages. As a kid, I couldn't even look you straight in the eye, John, if you knew me as a kid, because my ears were so sensitive that I would look this way when people would talk to me because my ears would hear it versus eyes. And so I had to teach myself how to look people straight in the eye. So I'm saying that just in case other people have these issues. Sometimes you're visual, sometimes you're auditory, sometimes you're kinesthetic, sometimes you're all three, or sometimes you're two out of the three, and one isn't exactly embraced yet, but they all can be. So going back to the soul print, because that's more of like finding your voice, finding, who you really are and what way you learn and how you hear things visually, auditorily, or feeling wise. And then once you start doing that with your voice and understand yourself a little bit more and know that you're unique and that you have something that nobody else has and it's unique and special to you. And that is what we're all here to unleash, whether it's a mom, a lawyer, a podcast, business coach, therapist, healer, a judge, recovery specialist, whatever. And a book writer, author, Oprah, it doesn't matter, whatever you're here to do, you can't find that if you can't find your authentic voice.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just going to say, I think when you find what you're in alignment, and you're doing, I love what I do. I mean, I started my business in my early 40s. It's been a little over 9 years, but I feel like I can do my work in the career that I'm in.
Yes.
And so, all my clients, everybody's different. And I don't necessarily want to talk about myself, but what I just want to put out there is for those who are kind of listening and kind of trying to figure out what that feeling is. Mm-hmm. The only way I can describe what it feels like is, and kind of based like on a little bit what you're saying is, it just feels like there's a line going from like this down the center of my body, from like my top of my head down, and then kind of like, down past my stomach all the way down. And when that feels like it's in a straight line, I feel that's how I feel.
I love that. That's really
Yeah.
beautiful, actually.
Yeah.
It made me actually think about when I did some recent photos, professional photos, but it's on the book and whatever, just to do the back and forth. I remember going into that photo shoot, and I wasn't really associated with, this is more professional, but it's also personal. I wasn't really, I was going as Lisa, period.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm a doctor. Yes, I have this and that, and yes, that and this and whatever. And I've done this and that. It didn't matter. But I was just going as me. And I remember feeling a little like frenetic inside, but it wasn't the frenetic that is anxious. It was the frenetic that was excited, because I was like, that's my alignment.
Yeah.
I'm in my soul print, being me. And yes, I have this training, that training. I've been a part of that and part of this, but none of it mattered. I was actually internally and externally just me.
Right.
And I was showing that. And that to me is the soul print, the highest goal of spiritual living. And I'm not done. That's just where I am now. So I'm still, after this book, I'm like, okay, what next?
What's next?
Where
I'd love your thoughts on this too, because I think when you're in alignment and you're in your soul prints, and you're kind of service in that space. Like I feel like I'm in that space, and I think, but I also think what's important is humility and gratitude and confidence and courage to talk about your failures and your lessons. So like when I tell people like I got a 7 on my ACTs, and then the year after they changed it to a minimum of 14, I think actually there was I don't know if this was fact or fiction, that a monkey actually took it the year I took it and got like a 12 or something, or that I got a 720 total on my SATs, or that I'm dyslexic, or, like I can like list things that it's like, at first I feel like sometimes people like question if I'm telling the truth, right? Because I say it, so it's just like it is what it is. I don't feel like I'm not smart, but I also know I'm never the smartest person in the room. But I know my qualities that can outpace other people, right? And so, like I know I'm not Jeopardy smart, but my EQ is really high.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think that's part of it too. Like when you're in alignment, you kind of, and you can't do this, I think, in corporate America always, because there's just different like energies around it. But when you can kind of just tell it how it is, it is what it is.
It is what it is, and maybe corporate America over the next couple of years, decades, may start embracing this new worldview that so many people are opening up to, like you. I know exactly what you're talking about there. And I think it's really, I love how you said of service, because I don't feel like I work.
Yeah.
And I work hard every day, just like you do probably, and a lot of other people, but I don't, it doesn't feel like work for me. It feels like I'm being of service.
Yeah.
I literally say, how can I contribute to you today? I have like 6 women that are being first-time moms, from different experience to no postpartum depression to like world's been toppled, don't even know how to exist.
Yeah.
To people working on Wall Street or in New York, very well educated, very elite, overdose, cocaine, alcohol, but I don't have a problem. To my child, was born with this and is physically acting out. Like it just goes all over the gamut. And I'm just like, okay, that's just the drama of life being really yuckily lifey.
Yeah.
But okay, how can I be of service to this person to get a little bit more out of the negative homeostasis to, let's just say, for lack of a better word, positive homeostasis, and more connected with their soul and spirit.
Yeah.
And it's of service, creating that space for them to remember who they really are, not what they've become because of what is happening.
Yeah. Yeah. You do beautiful work. I mean, I loved my session with you. My wife saw you. I want to say on an episode of Goop she was watching. Would that be right? Were you?
I don't know. She actually probably Gwyneth wrote something up. I didn't know this. This is how I found out. Gwyneth wrote something up about the sessions that she had done with me and sent it out to her private list. And one morning, and like a Monday morning, I didn't know this, I woke up and I had all these new clients paying for sessions, and it was just coming in. And then I texted her, I asked her assistant to give me her number, and I just said, or just tell her thank you. And then he gave her my number, and she wrote back to me. She's like, "Are you happy?" And I was like, "That's amazing. I never expected that. And thank you." I mean,
Yeah.
she really is, you know, a very kind soul to one, put herself, she's a seeker. So that's just part
Yeah.
of her, whatever. But to put herself out there with, just regular, healers, supporting them, male or female, in their businesses, and then writing about it. I never knew that was going to happen. I'm just doing my session.
Yeah.
And that was just like, that's to me like when you're in your soul print. Those things happen. They're not from me. They're just because I'm in alignment with a larger energy that I'm
flows through you. Yeah. And so anyway, that's how my wife found out about you, through Gwyneth's stuff. And then she had such a great session that I had a session with you. It was great. Let's I have one final section I just want to chat about healing the disconnect. I think we talked a little bit earlier. It just seems to me people feel so disconnected right now. I have a lot of companies. There's like this kind of uptick in people having me come in and doing keynotes. And part of the keynote is to reconnect their people, reconnect the people with themselves, and then move into whatever element of business that I'm there to kind of, do an interactive experiential kind of workshop. But there's this constant theme of getting people just feeling reconnected with the team, the collective, and more importantly, themselves. And so when you talk about in chapter 5, healing the disconnects, how do you mean?
Oh, I mean the disconnect between their body and elements, let's say, body and earth.
Yeah. How do they start?
Yeah. Well, the first thing that thought to me, like I went to Montana to recertify in theta healing. It's been about 8 years, and there was new classes I wanted to take, and the institute now is in Montana. And I spent 10 days by myself, besides going to these classes in Montana. Earth, wind, sun, air, just beautiful state. And I hadn't been alone in a long time, with family and kids and clients and all that stuff. And I just took the time to be with the sun when it came out and feel that on my skin, and then be with the wind and let me breathe with that. But why I brought up Montana, besides my own personal experience, is I sense like the corporate environment, it's all about tasks and objectives and profits and mission. And, you have to, of course, it's important business wise, to have all the numbers and to make sure your return on investment is actually working with all your expenses and all of that stuff, advertising, blah, 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 blah. And that you're hopefully appealing to the mission and the soul of the business. But people connecting with each other, you have no idea generally what's going on with people at home, or where they came from when you get them as adults, or what they really think about authority or their positions or the business or the person they're working with. And, there's clicks, there's not clicks, there's people that seem to do more work than others. So there's built up resentments and judgments. We all have them. Okay. So you have to know also about the personalities, because when you're judging, you're disconnecting from any possibility. And that's already inherent in a lot of these working environments, like who's going to get ahead and who's going to fall behind, who's going to get the leadership position or the bump in salary and who isn't. How am I going to get commissions? How am I not? All that kind of stuff. So how do you reconnect? In those kind of group environments, man, I would love like equine therapy and, out in the woods, even just like for 30 minutes doing something, but collaborating together and using different set of conflict resolution skills and conceptualization skills to work together. That isn't necessarily task business, so clear linear objectives, but you have a mission that makes you laugh at your insecurities and support each other when one person is going down, instead of talking about them to the next person in the next cubicle and adding on to that or excluding them from lunch or something like that. I don't know if this is exactly real. I don't think I say this specifically in my book this way, but when I think about business, I think about the outdoors, just asking this question. I'm staring at the trees on my property here, and just like the oxygen and the beautifulness of outside versus inside. And our world has become more inside because since COVID, and more detached. Even myself, I have to, if I'm doing 8 hours of sessions a day, let's say, I have to after my sessions and in between each session, I have to stand up, ground myself, go outside, feel the sun feel the breeze, feel the wind. It's 110 degrees now in Texas. It's not very easy to do that because it's humid, but I like to get out there and reconnect and just feel myself, close my eyes and breathe. And so a lot of the reconnection that I talk about in the book with exercises is finding out what you really feel what's really going on when you're frenetic, when you're anxious, when you snap at someone, when you're procrastinating, when you're not enjoying your work, when you're not enjoying somebody, and leaning into that so that you can change who you are. Because if you change who you are, then you'll change the energy around you, even in cubicles. And I just worked with that with a 22-year-old who moved over from Australia to New York and got a visa and got a job in New York City, one of the harder cities, Instagram influencer stuff with, and a new business. And she's having a little bit of a hard time. And so some of these principles that I'm talking to you about now is what I did with her. And some of the exercises in the book I did with her. And it really helped her to center herself in her own presence as a friend, being a different energy that she wanted to be perceived as, not the energy that she was being perceived as. It's very different.
I love it. Lisa, you're great. I always enjoy talking with you.
Same to you, John. Thank you so much.
Wait, let's do a quick speed round. All right. So you mentioned your book, or mentioned the book earlier. Start Where You Are. What's another book that's had a big impact on you?
Oh, you're going back to the books. Okay, let's see. Believe it or not, Codependency No More was a really big book. I did love The Sacred Contracts, the one that you mentioned, Caroline Myss. I really love Dr. Wayne Dyer. I know he's been passed away now for a while, but that when he started doing Power of Intention,
so good.
One of those, I'll never forget. Change the way you look at things, and the way you look at things change. I mean, that to me, I didn't even have to read the whole book. Once I read that, I think I've said that to every client since I've read that. Boring if you come see me.
I love it.
That's what I'm doing with soul work. Change the way you look at things, and the way you look at things change.
I love it.
And for all those out in the recovery world, which I know isn't everybody, in the population, I have to say, if you ever have to read the big book because you have this particular issue, if you could take away the patriarchal nature of it, if that doesn't bother you so much, and just read the content of it, it is so real and so true. And it's a really good just checks and balances on your own consciousness, honestly.
I love it. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received?
Best piece of wisdom I've ever received. I would have to say, by sitting in those recovery meetings in my early sobriety years and years ago, not one particular, oh yes, I know it. I remember one guy said to me, if nobody's told you today that you're loved, I love you. And I'm going to keep loving you until you know how to love yourself. I'd never heard something so kind to me before.
Oh, that's sweet.
And then I have passed that on to the clients I work with in that genre, but actually on videos and Instagram, TikToks, I say that a lot. Because I don't think I didn't hear enough as I was a kid that I was loved. And it really is nice when someone says that. It just kind of softens things. Oh yeah, I'm not alone.
Yeah.
I am loved, and someone, whether I know them or not.
Yeah. I love it. Last question. Your book, The Body of Change, using your body to heal, love, and empower yourself. What's one thing that everybody can do right now, one action step to change um, their body or
Mm.
their way that they heal or the way that they love or the way they empower themselves? What's the first step?
Close your eyes, breathe whenever you feel a little frenetic inside. This is more for the anxious, maybe even angry or frustrated, annoying feelings like you don't know where to go. Close your eyes, breathe through your mouth. Place one hand on the center of your chest, and you can't see me now, but I'll push back a little bit. One hand on your lower abdomen, feet on the floor, back against the chair. 3 deep breaths and just say hi to your body. Hi body, hi body, hi body. Hi me, hi me, hi me. Hi earth, hi earth, hi earth. And just kind of imagine your energy touching whatever room you're in and expanding while you're in your body, and ask yourself, hi. Now that you've said hi, what's going on? What's missing? What's lacking? What's the problem? And you might even find out just by doing that there actually isn't a problem. You just need to take a break and get away from the computer.
That's great. Dr. Lisa Cooney, COONEY.com. Lisa, tell everybody where they can buy your book, who your ideal clients are, and the type of work that you do on a day-to-day.
Great, thank you. drlisacooney.com/BOC, just for Body of Change, or on Amazon. Right now we have the hardcover, the soft cover, and at some point we will have the Audible. I did record it. It's just being edited as we speak. And it's also in 11 different languages, from German, Dutch, Spanish, Portuguese, Hebrew, go on and on and on. So I wanted everybody to have that. And I work regularly. You can email me at customercare@drlisacooney.com. And Archie is my EA, executive assistant, and he'll get you sorted. Any questions you need to know. You can, if you're ready, you can just go to the website, drlisacooney.com, and say schedule, and it'll pop up whatever's available in my schedule. Note to self, Archie has some spots that he knows that aren't online.
Yeah.
And we have packages and one-offs, whatever you got. Plus, there's also a store if you like little meditations, theta meditations, and those sorts of things. And my ideal client, honestly, is somebody that wants to change and know that it's possible, no matter how deep their story or their trauma is. That all you need to have is that 1 degree of hope, and I'm all with you, and I will stand by your side for wherever you need to go, because that's what I'm here for. I know from actually 7 years of age. I'm here to help. I'm here to contribute, and working with me works because what comes through me is what I'm connected to and what connects to you. And I just listen to that soul to soul.
It's great. Lisa, I love talking with you. This was great. You know, I'm a business coach, and my tagline is I work with successful people who are stuck and I get them unstuck. Yeah. And what I love about this podcast is I get to talk to people all over the globe who are in alignment with that mission to get people unstuck.
Yeah.
And you shared so many things today that will, give people the ability to look a little bit more intrinsically into their soul, their purpose. And you brought so many ideas and so much light to the conversation. I'm really grateful for that. And I appreciate the soul work that you do. I have benefited from it. Not only just talking to you, but just the work that I've done with you. So has my wife, and so have many people all over the place, I know. So keep on doing great work that you do. It's special, and I'm appreciative of it. And thanks for taking time to be on my podcast today.
I have one more thing that I just remembered, John, and
Yeah.
I thank you for everything that you said. But this is a tagline from another person that has inspired me greatly. It's by Maria Shriver.
Yeah.
And her and her son set up this mosh bar. I don't know if you.
Oh, sure. It's funny. I just saw it. Just showed up on my Instagram yesterday that they were on Shark Tank and da 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 da. Yeah.
I saw it on Shark Tank. It was phenomenal.
Yeah.
But they have a tagline that says, "Be kind to your mind," because it's also the ingredients.
Yeah. Yeah.
It leads to Alzheimer's research and some of the stuff they set up. But that phrase, "Be kind to your mind."
Yeah.
Whenever I'm eating one of those mosh bars, sorry, my New Yorker's coming out.
Yeah.
I'm always like, oh, I'm being kind to my mind. So that's what I want to leave you all with. Be kind to your mind no matter what, and know whether it's John or me or the millions of other helpful people, contributory people out there, there's somebody there for you. So just reach out. You're not alone. Thanks, John.
That's great. Thanks, Lisa.
Bye for now.